Hey everyone! So here's the scoop. I'm Chloe, 33, and I've been married to my husband Sebastian, 34, for 7 years. Things were pretty great between us, until they weren't. Let me break it down for you from the beginning. Sebastian has this female best friend, Alicia, who's also 34. They dated for a year in high school, but decided they were better off as friends. From the get-go, Alicia came across as a classic pick-me girl, always needing the spotlight and putting me down to look better. I remember when I first met her, she gave me this once-over, like she was sizing me up, and then made some snide comment about how she was glad Sebastian finally found someone and how relieved she was that she didn't have to marry him. Super weird. But I shrugged it off, thinking maybe I was overreacting. But nope, turns out she really had it in for me. One time, we were out for dinner, and she wouldn't stop talking about these adventures she and Sebastian used to go on. She made this camping trip sound like some epic romance, and I just sat there like a third wheel. Another time, at a party, she told everyone how my husband had a huge crush on her back in high school. Sebastian was squirming in his seat, clearly uncomfortable, but Alicia kept going, almost like she wanted to remind everyone, especially me, that she was his first love. The worst was last Christmas at my in-laws. Alicia brought this elaborate homemade pie and wouldn't shut up about how she made it from scratch and how it was Sebastian's favorite. When I mentioned I had baked cookies, she gave me this condescending look and said, "Oh, that's so sweet. I'm sure your cookies are delicious too." It doesn't sound awful, but the tone was so smug I could have screamed. Sebastian, of course, didn't see any of this. He kept saying Alicia was just being friendly and that I was overreacting. He insisted they had a lot of history and she meant no harm. Every time I brought it up, it turned into a fight, with him getting defensive and me feeling like I was the crazy one. It didn't help that his mom, Regina, also seemed to prefer Alicia over me. Regina would always invite Alicia to family dinners without even asking me, and would fawn over her cooking while subtly dissing mine. I decided to distance myself from Alicia for my own sanity. I started avoiding events where she'd be present and planned activities with Sebastian that didn't involve her. Things came to a head when I was pregnant with our son Jamie, now 7. When I went into labor, I couldn't reach Sebastian. My best friend took me to the hospital, and Sebastian showed up 5 hours after Jamie was born, saying he was consoling Alicia because her marriage had ended. I was livid. I needed him, and he chose her over our baby and me. I told him he couldn't see the baby until he cut Alicia out of his life. We argued, with him saying I was being hormonal and unreasonable. Eventually, he promised to never see her again. I also made him promise that if his parents wanted to see Alicia, they'd do it without involving me and never invite her to family events when I was around. I didn't feel great about giving him that ultimatum, but I was at my breaking point. It wasn't just about that one incident, but years of feeling like I was second place to Alicia. I knew it was drastic, but I needed him to understand where I was coming from. I would like to recount a series of events that occurred after the birth of our son, Jamie, which profoundly impacted our family dynamics. Initially, Sebastian upheld his promise, and Alicia ceased to be a pervasive presence in our lives, resulting in a sense of relief. Although Regina was initially displeased, she eventually accepted the changes upon witnessing the joy Sebastian and I shared. Family gatherings became less burdensome, allowing me to feel more at ease. Despite this notable improvement, occasional reminders of the past persisted. For example, one evening, Regina remarked that she missed Alicia's Christmas baking. I had to consciously remind myself to remain calm and let such comments go. It was evident that Alicia still occupied a place in their hearts, which, while painful, was understandable given the years of friendship and shared family moments. An additional challenge arose during a reunion with Sebastian's old friends, who wished to invite Alicia. Sebastian had to explain the current situation, which was awkward and visibly painful for him, but he did so for the sake of our family. Rebuilding trust was another significant hurdle. The incident during Jamie's birth left a lingering scar, at times making me wonder if he harbored any resentment towards me for the choices we had to make. Counseling was instrumental in helping us navigate this period. Through therapy, we learned to communicate more effectively, and Sebastian began to understand the extent of the hurt his prior prioritization of Alicia had caused me. For several years, things seemed to progress smoothly. However, As our son Jamie grew older, I began to notice troubling changes in his behavior, particularly after Regina started babysitting him during my work hours. Jamie, who was once an affectionate and sweet child, began exhibiting tantrums and a stark change in demeanor. For example, he used to eagerly run to greet me with a hug upon my return from work, but now he barely acknowledges me and often refuses to engage. He used to cherish our bedtime stories, but now insists that his grandmother's tales are superior and prefers her storytelling. This transformation has been heartbreaking. Additionally, Jamie has started echoing Regina's opinions, saying things such as, "Grandma says you should spend more time with me," or "Grandma makes the best food, not you." It is apparent that he is parroting Regina's sentiments, leading me to question what she might be telling him when I am not around. On one occasion, Jamie threw a significant tantrum in a store because I refused to buy him a particular toy, screaming that his grandmother would have purchased it for him. This behavior was not only embarrassing, but also out of character for him. When I attempted to explain why he could not have the toy, he continuously reiterated that Regina always lets him have his way. The situation reached a critical point a few weekends ago, when Jamie refused to come home after spending the day with Regina, stating he wanted to stay with her because she was nicer to him. I was devastated. Attempts to discuss this with Regina were met with nonchalance, as she dismissed Jamie's behavior as typical childish antics. However, it was hard not to be concerned. I also observed more subtle changes in Jamie's behavior. He had become more defiant, often ignoring my requests or doing the exact opposite. Simple tasks, such as asking him to clean up his toys or put on his shoes, had become daily struggles. It seemed as though he was testing me constantly, which was exhausting. Another distressing aspect was Jamie making comparisons between me and Regina, stating that Grandma's house is more fun, or Grandma lets me watch whatever I want. It felt as though he was being turned against me, leaving me unsure of how to address it. Despite my efforts to discuss these concerns with Sebastian, he dismissed them as overreactions on my part. In an attempt to rebuild our bond, I dedicated more one-on-one time to Jamie, engaging in activities he enjoyed, such as going to the park, baking cookies, and having movie nights. Regrettably, Regina's influence seemed to overshadow my efforts, and I began to dread leaving Jamie in her care. Yet, at the time, I had limited childcare options. The situation took an even more troubling turn about a week ago, when Jamie mentioned missing his new mommy. Taken aback, I asked him who he meant, but he ran off without a word. Concerned by his reaction, I regretfully read his diary. To my dismay, I discovered that the new mommy he was referring to was Alicia. He wrote fondly about her, mentioning how she gave him candies and took him to the park, activities that I had longed to share with him. Most disturbing was his note that, "Dad says we can't tell Mommy, or she will not let us see Alicia." This revelation was heart-wrenching, not only because my son was calling someone else his new mother, but also because my boundaries had been blatantly disregarded. Confronting Sebastian that evening led to initial denials, but the undeniable evidence in Jamie's diary forced him to admit the truth. He confessed to taking Jamie to see Alicia, believing it harmless since Jamie appeared to enjoy her company. He failed to grasp the depth of my betrayal, not only by him, but also by Regina, who had facilitated these visits, despite knowing my disapproval. Regina's justification that she was merely trying to keep everyone happy felt like a blatant disregard for my role as Jamie's mother and my right to set family boundaries. Jamie's diary further revealed that Regina had been telling him Alicia was like a second mother, no doubt contributing to his confusion and behavioral changes. Reflecting on the stress and confusion Jamie must have endured was heartbreaking. Anger and hurt consumed me as I waited for Sebastian to return home. When he arrived, I confronted him with Jamie's diary entries. Though he initially tried to minimize the situation, the truth was irrefutable. He admitted Alicia had met Jamie more than once, and his lies began to unravel. He defensively claimed the visits were innocent mistakes, but I made it clear that my boundaries had been violated. I told Sebastian to leave the house, and he spent the night at his parents' residence. That night, overwhelmed by a whirlwind of emotions, I found myself unable to sleep. These events have left an indelible mark on our family, and the path to healing is uncertain. Among my thoughts, I questioned how he could act in such a manner and place Jamie in such a bewildering predicament. My trust felt irreparably shattered, and I was uncertain about our path forward. I repeatedly perused Jim's diary entries, each one inflicting further emotional pain. The following morning, Regina telephoned me, expressing her distress over my decision to expel Sebastian. She accused me of overreacting and staunchly defended Alicia, asserting that Alicia had merely been attempting to be kind to Jamie and that I was making an issue out of trivial matters. I retorted that she had no right to act behind my back, completely disregarding my feelings and boundaries. When she tried to argue, I terminated the call, resolved to end her interference in our lives. Sebastian returned home the next day and sought to converse with me, but I informed him of my decision to leave him. He expressed disbelief that I would make such a decision over what he deemed a minor issue. I countered that his actions were far from minor. On the day our son was born, he chose Alicia over me, and he had repeated this behavior. I could no longer tolerate such conduct. I instructed him to gather his belongings and vacate the premises, and that we would address custody and other legal matters through our attorneys. Sebastian began crying and pleading, professing his love for Jamie and me, and insisting that he had never intended to hurt us. He claimed that he could not envision his life without us, but I remained resolute. My emotions were a tumultuous mix of anger, betrayal, and profound sadness. I had afforded him numerous opportunities to prove he could prioritize our family, yet he consistently failed. This issue extended beyond Alicia. It was about a persistent pattern of disrespect and dishonesty. Each time he chose her over me, it felt as if a knife had been driven into my heart. The birth of Jamie was supposed to be one of the happiest days of our lives, but instead was marred by his absence and the realization that he would always prioritize Alicia. Sebastian continued to insist that he never intended to hurt me and was merely trying to be a good friend to Alicia. However, that was beside the point. The critical issue was his consistent disregard for my feelings and the boundaries we had established together. His actions demonstrated a lack of respect for me and our marriage. As he sat there in tears, I felt an unexpected sense of calm, confident that this was the right decision for both Jamie and me. We could not continue living in a toxic environment. Jamie deserved to be raised in a home where his parents respected and valued each other, not one characterized by constant tension and deceit. As I packed Sebastian's belongings, he continued to plead with me to reconsider, promising to sever ties with Alicia and do whatever was necessary to make amends. However, his promises had lost all credibility in light of his repeated betrayals. I communicated that I required space and time to heal, which necessitated his departure. As I packed, memories of our relationship flooded my mind. The good times, the laughter, the dreams we had shared. Letting go was difficult, but I recognized it as necessary. I could no longer sacrifice my happiness and self-respect for someone who did not value them. Sebastian eventually left, taking only a suitcase of essentials. I informed him that I would arrange a time for him to retrieve the rest of his belongings when Jamie was not present, to shield our son from as much pain as possible. The house felt eerily quiet after his departure. I sat down and took a deep breath, attempting to process everything. Although I knew the road ahead would be challenging, I felt relief knowing I had made a decision that was best for Jamie and me. I contacted my best friend and recounted the events. She was supportive, reminding me that I deserved to be with someone who truly valued and respected me. However, I began receiving calls and messages from various individuals. Regina called again, insisting that I was making a grave mistake. I firmly told her that this matter was not her concern, and she bore responsibility for the situation as well, before ending the call. As I sat alone, I replayed the events in my mind, grappling with doubt. Was I overreacting? Was I breaking up our family over something that could be resolved? Regina's long-standing influence in Sebastian's life made me question whether I was wrong to push her away as well. My phone buzzed with texts and voicemails from Sebastian, his parents, and mutual friends, most urging me to reconsider. They emphasized that he had made a mistake and deserved another chance, and that Jamie needed both parents. It was overwhelming, and I felt pulled in multiple directions. One message stood out from my best friend. She reminded me of all the times I had confided in her about feeling secondary to Alicia, and how hurt and lonely I felt when Sebastian dismissed my feelings. She encouraged me to do what was best for Jamie and me, not to let anyone guilt me into staying in a damaging situation. Still, as I sat alone, I felt confused and uncertain. Was I making a mistake? Was I overreacting? Update 1. Greetings to all. Although it has only been a day since my initial post, I have some updates. Events have become much clearer now. I had packed Sebastian's essentials, but his iPad was inadvertently left behind. While I normally would not snoop, I was no longer the same person I was days ago. Hence, I accessed his messenger apps and examined his chats. To my dismay, I discovered messages between him and Alicia dating back several years. The messages revealed that he had never ceased communicating with her, even shortly after Jamie's birth. Each message was heart-wrenching and eye-opening. Sebastian expressed how much he missed Alicia and regretted not being able to see her openly, lamenting that he had to keep her a secret from me. In one conversation, he remarked, "Sometimes I think about how easy things would be if we were together. I know it's complicated, but I can't help but wish it." It was devastating to see how emotionally invested he was in her, while pretending to be committed to our family. The messages also divulged the frequency of their communication, with prolonged discussions about their lives, struggles, and dreams. Alicia would update Sebastian about her life, including personal details and complaints about her romantic relationships. Sebastian responded with supportive messages, sometimes even offering relationship advice. Their bond clearly went beyond mere friendship. One message from Alicia was particularly painful. "I know we can't be together, but I really cherish what we have. It's been hard without you." To which Sebastian replied, "I feel the same way. I wish things were different. I hate that I can't be more open about how I feel." It felt like a punch to the gut, revealing his emotional investment in her while our marriage crumbled. Sebastian also vented to Alicia about our marriage, sharing intimate details and expressing frustration. It was a profoundly painful realization that he had been living a double life, confiding in her instead of working through issues with me. The consistent pattern of neglect and dishonesty was finally laid bare. This revelation clarified that I need to leave him, as he does not value or respect me. Update 2. Hello, everyone. It has been a month, and I have been navigating numerous challenges. I did not confront Sebastian about the messages immediately. Instead, I hired movers to transport his belongings to his mother's house where he had been staying. When the movers arrived, Sebastian called me, but I did not answer. Subsequently, he appeared at my door, crying and asking for another chance. This was my moment. I took a deep breath and articulated everything I had discovered on his iPad, how he had never ceased communicating with Alicia, and how his secret conversations revealed his true feelings. I recounted the messages where he expressed missing her, regretting that he had to keep her a secret, and feeling trapped in our marriage. I made it clear that I had read it all and would not be manipulated by his pleas. I told him, "You've been living a double life, and now you can be with Alicia. You've always wanted this, and now you're free to pursue it without hiding your true feelings." His face went pale, and he began begging and pleading, saying, "I didn't mean for things to go this far. Please don't do this." He attempted to guilt-trip me by mentioning Jamie, saying, "Think about Jamie. You're breaking up our family." Seeing him in such a state was both painful and oddly satisfying. I felt empowered, having finally taken control and stood up for myself. I reminded myself of all the times he had let me down and broken his promises. I told him I needed him to leave and close the door in his face. It was a harsh but necessary decision. The next day, I initiated the process of formalizing the separation by consulting a lawyer to discuss the legalities of divorce and custody arrangements. I was determined to handle everything smoothly to avoid future complications. Sebastian continued to call and text, seeking to apologize and convince me to reconsider. He sent messages like, "I'm willing to do anything to make this right. And, please, let's talk about this one more time. I did not respond. I needed space and time to heal and was not ready for further conversations with him. Each engagement felt like a regression, and I needed to move forward. I instructed him to communicate only through my lawyer and then blocked him. Update 3. Hello, everyone. Let me start by expressing my gratitude for your support and assistance during this difficult time. Your advice and kind words have been invaluable in helping me navigate this ordeal. The divorce is still in progress, but Sebastian has finally ceased his attempts to win me back. It has been a long and arduous journey, yet it feels like we are moving towards a resolution. Dealing with Jamie has been particularly challenging. He is still trying to comprehend the situation and has been asking questions like, "Why isn't Daddy coming home?" And, "When can we see Daddy again?" It breaks my heart to see him so confused and upset. I have been doing my best to explain things in an age-appropriate manner, reassuring him that even though adults sometimes need to live in different places, our love for him remains unchanged. Thank you once again for all your support and advice. It has been a tremendous comfort to know that I am not alone in this. If anyone has experienced a similar situation, I would greatly appreciate any insights on how you managed the transition for both your children and